New polling shows that many voters who helped push Republican governors to victory last year now wish that they hadn't. Surveys by Public Policy Polling show that Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, who won by 6 points in November, would lose to his opponent, Tom Barrett, by 7 points if a do-over election were held today. Ohio Governor John Kasich won with a 2-point margin over Ted Strickland last year. Today, he would lose by a whopping 25 points. Republican governors from Michigan, Pennsylvania, Iowa, and Georgia would suffer the same fates, according to this polling. Only Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval would still win his race with a rematch. As for Florida Governor Rick Scott, he would take a 20-point tumble this time around. It's a hypothetical outcome that has the attention, though, of the White House. Politico reports that President Obama's campaign team plans to make the unpopular governor the centerpiece of the president's re-election strategy when it comes to dealing with the Sunshine State. Let's bring in Margie Omero. She's the president of Momentum Analysis, a Democratic polling agency. Margie, it's good to have you on tonight. Let's get straight to this and dive in, because it's interesting to see these numbers, especially with some of these whoppers of being 20, 25 points a loss today. Where did these Republican governors lose the most ground? Just over 7 months.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's a few things that are really important here. And one of the most important things from these polls is that independents are now saying that they're going to vote Democratic. In the actual elections, according to official exit poll results, they voted for Republicans. Independents went Republicans for the Republican candidate. But now they're voting for the Democratic candidate. And this kind of pattern is what we saw in 2006 when Democrats took back the House. We saw independents moving toward Democrats. And in 2010, we saw independents moving toward Republicans. To see independents now shift again toward Democrats is really encouraging.
Do you think that this buyer's remorse would extend to Republicans in federal government? And does that mean Republicans are in danger of losing the House in 2012?
I absolutely think that what we see from these polls and a lot of other polls and what we saw in New York, the New York congressional contest last week, is that there's buyer's remorse not just in Washington but in the states. And, you know, I get it. I mean, people saw, people heard what might happen during the campaign and said, of course, Republicans aren't going to end Medicare as we know it, or try and take back child safety laws and take on teachers while giving tax breaks and giveaways to oil companies and to corporations. I mean, who would do such a thing? But then, in fact, that's what they did immediately. Those are the kinds of actions that people have been taking, Republicans in Washington and across the country in a lot of state legislatures. And people have immediately decided this is not for us.
Margie, you talk about Washington. President Obama, though, is enjoying this bump in an approval rating. Do you think that this rebound correlates to the declining numbers that we're seeing across this country for Republican governors, or do you think it's just still riding that wave of getting rid of bin Laden?
I think there's a few things. I think, one, people are getting a real close look at what the Republican agenda is and deciding it's terrible. I mean, the hangover was big last weekend, but what's a really bigger hangover is after the Republican takeover from 2010, and the Ryan plan has really been a disaster for Republicans from a message strategy, from a message point of view, from what voters want to hear. It's cost them a safe congressional seat, which should have been a safe congressional seat. And it's going to cause some huge problems down the road. What
do you make, though, of the reported strategy of the Obama re-election campaign to highlight these unpopular governors, specifically that of Rick Scott in Florida?
All of these states are really crucial swing states. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. These are all swing states that, and Georgia. I mean, these are states that have been in play. They've been battleground states. And the fact that there are these Republican governors who had no font of goodwill, no benefit of the doubt, no honeymoon. They just immediately were immediately rejected by their own voters and by independents is something that's going to benefit not just the Obama re-election campaign, but any other Democratic candidate running for Congress or Senate or a state representative or a down ballot statewide.
Margie, how are Republicans reacting to these polls, digesting them, and are they going to have to alter their agendas over the next year and a half? And is that really enough time?
I don't know. I mean, they seem to still have this kid in the candy store kind of attitude where they're not really looking at what the voters think, because if they had been, they wouldn't be in this situation. They wouldn't be doing exactly the opposite of what the American people say they want. I mean, the American people, they don't want to end heating oil help for low-income seniors. They don't want to take away mandatory maternity care coverage. They don't want to, take away health care from children. Yet these are the kinds of things they don't want to redefine rape. And these are the kinds of things that Republicans have decided was their first #1 priority, instead of working to create jobs for the working class. And that's what the American people really want.
Margie Omero of Momentum Analysis. Margie, nice to have you on tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Loyalists call him the chairman. And now new details emerge on the man who runs Fox News. We're talking Roger Ailes. It's an Ed Show exclusive. Next.